I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we have
Yes, we have Shane Coyle and Ryan Christensen on online for wildlife. We contacted them, letting them know the committee had a few questions. So I will allow them. So Shane and Ryan got it set up so you can start your camera and unmute yourself. And so appreciate you joining us today. The committee had a few questions about the increase and just wanted to confirm service levels and everything that's going on here. That's kind of the preamble. Anything I missed, Chair?
No, that's those are the issues we need to understand.
Okay, yeah, so Shane Coyle, thanks for having me on. I've been there in person the last few years. Looks like Ryan's on here as well. He took Mike Radcliffe's spot, who then took Chris Lulay's spot. So we kind of had a little bit of musical chairs there in the county, but Ryan is now your trapper, and he's been busy in the county. In fact, we've had two of the guys from over here spent the last 2 nights up all night with some wolf issues, trying to scare wolves off there in your county. So a lot going on in Morrow County recently. And with wolves in the landscape, I think it's going to continue to increase in busyness. So reason for the big increase this year, one of it is just the cost to do business. All counties have, received a increase for the cost to do business. But a lot of your cost for this year for the increase is because we've fallen short for many years now and not had enough money. So this is to try to get us to fully fund the employee this year. I've only been here 4 years, but we've just been significantly underfunded in Morrow County. And we've been taking money out of our operating costs here at the federal government to keep the employee going and donating extra time in the county. But my boss and our budget person told me that can't happen going forward anymore, that I have to ask for what it really costs to keep the employee going. So that's the two main things: cost of doing business, and we've been significantly underfunded in Morrow for a number of years.
Any questions that the committee has? I'd like to share something with you. If you've only been 4 years, did you know Larry Mill, the shooter, the guy that called everybody the shooter? So he would tell your cohort that he's a shooter.
Okay.
We always laughed about it. Larry being the guy that came and took care of the necessary things. So I have to share that. So for years we referred to him as a shooter. So you're the shooter, I take it.
I guess so. That's where that comes from then.
Just sharing that little joke with you, but any questions, anyone?
So, and I don't want to call you the shooter, but I will because of lack of anything else.
That's fine. I'm happy.
Do you cover just Morrow County, or do you cover a larger area?
Just Morrow County.
Just Morrow County.
Just Morrow County.
And you've been here since
January.
January.
And Ryan, you're telling me you're out of Condon right now, but you're looking to relocate, so you're...
Yep. Yeah, that's the plan. Just hopefully here in July. So I think that's when my house is ready. So
Okay, Mr. Shooter,
Yeah, I guess so.
You're the guy with the hide on the wall, so it gotta be you guy. Did the Navy ever allow you on the bombing range for predator
Uh.
control?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I just wondered.
They used to years ago, but they haven't for a number of years, I know, so.
I was thinking previously they made a push to try and get them to let you back on there. I just wonder if that ever came to pass. Okay.
And then I have one more question. So is the 5 mile pack back intact or is it still?
The-
I know the Washington 1, 2, 3 pack is intact, but I'm not sure where the 5 mile pack is.
I'm not fully sure if it's all the way back intact. I know there's a few wolves there. The Washington Wolf or the Madison Butte pack, I think they're calling them now. It's going strong, unfortunately.
Four confirmed.
Yeah, I think we've had 4 so far. And I've been on three investigations and we've had 4 confirmed so far, so. And that is one thing, we are doing investigations now. They've allowed us to do that for about, I don't know, almost a year, so. We can do the investigations for the depredation stuff.
Well, thank you.
I know that it's a very necessary part of our area, so, like, so for me, I think that the increase is, well, needs to be, because if there's more predators, and I hear a lot about that, so.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions of us?
No, I'm glad to finally put some faces with some names, so it's hopefully I'll get in there and see you guys in person here one of these days, so.
Yeah, that would be great if you would make even if it was just biannually, but quarterly would be good. Just to give us report of what's going on.
We can do that.
Appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions?
Not for me. I don't know if Shane's got something, if anything, but
Just appreciate your support.
Okay, any questions that, okay. Well, we appreciate your coming, being here and online rather than, but you can come back and be in person anytime, so.
okay, I will, next time I will be in person. I don't like online.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Yep, thanks.
So it sounds like we are in favor of meeting your request. Is that?
So it's already included in the budget, so unless the committee wanted to modify what was included, there's no motion.
Remind me what section, what number of tab?
That was in the general fund non-departmental. So that would have been. Under central services, so tab number 7. Should have been the first one. Yep.
So it's the second
Page
bullet point.
57.
Second bullet point.
Perfect, thank you.
Valerie, you let me share my screen. Could be good. Are we ready to?
Are there anyone have any questions, or are we all comfortable with that? Leaving it as it is. Good, move on.
I just wanted to ask, is there any other questions or comments from the stuff that we covered yesterday before we dive into the last part? So we are in tab number 10, Health Human Services. All right, so we can get up on the screen. Gonna start off with veteran services. This, there was no significant changes in this budget. Again, the whole major impacts, you'll see big increases with materials and services and personnel, and that's the retirement plan and software licensing and the insurance allocations. Other than that, there was no significant changes in this budget. And just a note to the committee, there's some special rules surrounding the Veterans Services Department and veterans by statute. If once we establish a budget, we're unable to ever lower that budget unless we make a total general fund budget cut. So for example, and I'm not suggesting that it needs to happen or anything, I just for awareness, it's kind of unique in that way. So if there was a desire to ever or need to reduce it by 10%, for example, we'd have to make equal cuts to all the general fund programs and departments, or else we're prohibited from doing that by Oregon statute. So again, not that that's being suggested, just a good thing to be aware of. So we're just cognizant of the increases because we want to make sure we manage that. Moving on to public health. So public health, last year, we reclassified all of so there's two components in public health now, really. We have the mental health services that are provided by CCS. Those were in non-departmental. If you remember last year during the budget committee, we made a change for fiscal year 24 to move that out of non-departmental in order to properly classify it as something that was a little bit more aligned with health and provide some additional transparency. And so that resulted in a significant budget increase overall, and just wanted to remind the committee of that. Again, there's not anything real specific other than the revenues are worth calling out, and the 90% increase, and that was largely due to increase in the mental health, behavioral health grant funding that were received through OHA.
About 85% for all in the next one.
I'll start over that. Sabrina worked with Robin to prepare this budget. Do you
Why do you do that? Please.
didn't see if there's a note in the document there?
Just. No,
You bear with me for just a minute.
15 minutes.
How are you? Awesome.
You got that?
Yeah. Oh, you're not sorry, you probably not going to see it. Actually, I might not. Revenues? Yes, revenues. Put that. And I'll do that. Yeah, bye.
I see it happen. So when we did our chart of accounts conversion last year,
Oh,
a lot of the budget amounts, there were so many different accounts, and some of accounts really didn't have there was maybe 20 different revenue streams being charged posted to it. They all went into a miscellaneous line item. And then through FY 24, we made extra effort to record those in the proper account so we could track this better going forward. So, and the same happened on the budget side. So basically miscellaneous fees, had a $230,000 base. And then they zeroed that one out and then went through all the line items for fees and rebuilt that. So they zero based the fee revenue essentially. Budget that miscellaneous line item, all of those previous line items that went into that, the budget was probably considerably high. The revenues were historically optimistic in the public health department anyways. So that's where that decline was. So we zeroed it out and then zero based the fees by the different types of fees.
So we assume that this is a lot more accurate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did that answer your question sufficiently?
Well, it's still, I guess, yeah, it's still trend wise, it's still a significant decrease.
It is.
But
We
that's
can-
because
we
you
can-
think that it's,
We can
most of the
dig,
money was put in the wrong spot is what you just gotta understand.
well, I would say that for anything prior to 23, we can certainly dig into that more and find out.
It just seems.
Because it is.
But you could take a look, because looking back at the. FY 22, there's 192, FY 23 is 112, FY 24 year to date is 111.
Yeah, and we're half of that for budget.
Right. So we need to take a look at that and then maybe come back,
Yes, good.
just in holler when you. That's all.
Any other questions? This was the emergency medical services with that.
Yeah, that's where we put the 1.5 million for the potential ambulance service support.
And that's a brand new.
Yeah, it's a new department in the general fund.
No history.
Yeah.
So,
So we'll just keep moving along and once we have some more information on the public health one, we'll just be back to that, so. Moving into public safety and the report.
Chair, just interject one thing. We have our district attorneys conference back west, and as soon as he goes, just ask him if he could do this presentation, just because it's between.
between,
Yes,
okay,
so as soon as I see him pop on,
Okay.
just let me know.
So the juvenile department, this overview, we also have another fund that was established that the director oversees. And that's a fund that was established for the local public safety coordinating council. But first. Well, I'm still on public health here, I'm sorry. I'll get organized. Juvenile. All right, thank you. So again, this is a relatively minor changes. The increase in the federal, state, and local revenue line up at the top there has to do with some additional grant funding that's noted in the overview. And then that's also got an associated increase, and you'll see in the special payments line. Those are funds that we typically sub-award out to other to nonprofits like Made to Thrive is one example that provide services or you know, shoes, coats, clothes, that type of stuff to, or I think our shoe there's like some hygiene packages and working with the local barber for haircuts and that type of thing. So that's where those two increases are, additional grant funding, and then we're passing that through for those programs. Other than that, again, materials and services, personnel services, the same two things are driving those. In the LIPSIC fund, that's the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council fund. The reason we established this fund in the fiscal 24 budget, if you recall, there was some right towards the end of 2023, we had some money come in from CCS, and there was an additional grant from the state, and there was seems like there was some money that flowed in from Amazon as well, and created revenues that were going to be in surplus of our needs for the for this program, but they were specific for the program, so that we didn't lose the balance in the general fund. Essentially, we established that other fund and moved all those revenues to it. The changes in the revenues was the grant revenue that was coming in. So we had transfers and some grants that were coming in right at the end of the fiscal year, beginning of last fiscal year, that were kind of one-time things. And so that's why there was a decrease in the revenues for the fiscal 25 budget. Now we're just receiving a portion of the JRI grant, I believe Justice Reinvestment Grant. There's a line item in the budget for it, and it's going to the Public Safety Coordinating Council. Any questions?
Justin's available for the D8 one. It's okay if we just pop it out real quick.
He's ready to burn.
Justin, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, we'll see if this works. I apologize for not being there in person. We actually had a couple of different meetings going on. One about the new House Bill 4002, basically Oregon recriminalization of drugs, and basically funding that county may be receiving for diversion deflections. They had a one-day symposium here. And so I was here yesterday and then a DA meeting today. So I apologize, I can't be there in person.
Well, we accept your apology. This will work for us.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm not sure how the budget, I haven't seen the process so far, how it's a little bit different. I think it's been streamlined quite a bit. In short, I guess I'll just speak to, I know I always have quite a few different budgets. They're all kind of spread out based on different grants generally. I am sure I'm probably on Kevin's short list because of different grants. We have to report of small weird amounts of like $500 or things like that. So in short, though, I don't think we changed our budget much at all. We in the future may be looking at additionally, at this point, definitely need to have additions maybe in the office, but that's not this budget cycle. So as far as I can remember, I kept it close to the same, increased certain items if I needed to based upon prior year expenditures, but no large increases that I recall.
Sounds good. Are there any questions?
I would agree. I think the budget he's right on. It's very minor increases. Basically, I assume that's the same increases that we've seen in all the budgets. Thanks, Justin.
Yep.
Thank you.
The one thing I actually would add, this is kind of up in the air. Justin, are you still here?
I'm still here, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is kind of still up in the air at this point. We recently received a request from state courts to the state court administrator to start reporting on funding that the county has been receiving for mediation and conciliation services that are provided or paid for by the county. That was news to me. It wasn't a revenue stream that I was aware of. We did some reason, Justin as well. And as we did some research and found that we'd actually been receiving these revenues since 2011. And it had just been thrown into the general fund. To date, it's about $145,000. They are restricted revenues, specifically for the purpose of county, funded. So, in an effort to get that filled out, and we need to figure out what to do with that, in the budget, I did establish a new fund, Fund 249, because again, those are our restricted revenue. But since I've done that, there's been some more information that's kind of come to light about it. And apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Justin, or if I get it backwards, the state courts there's the mediators, and people who provide these services only bill Umatilla County. And there was an understanding that, or a thought that Umatilla County was then billing or had some sort of IGA where we passed this funding through to them, because those bills to Umatilla County also included services provided from Morrow County. It doesn't appear that anybody else had that understanding, because I've not been able to identify any outflows to Umatilla County related to this. So, there's some potential solutions. We can retain the funding here and contract with those service providers, and they can bill us directly from Morrow County, or perhaps an IGA between Umatilla and Morrow County. So, long story short, when I put the fund in the budget, it was before we knew additional details, and this. Depending on how that moves forward, this fund may or may not actually end up in actually being created. And if not, I would take that back to the Board of Commissioners, and we would just do a budget adjustment if this is approved as is. So
this is just a placeholder, probably right now.
Well, when I put it together, I thought this is what we were going to have to do, and then it turns out maybe there's some other options, and it was just information that we just have found out this last week or two. So
yeah, and I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that aspect. I think Kevin's being pretty nice about it. I think the state courts did bill, just Umatilla County. I'm not really sure when I looked at their billing if they differentiated very well between Morrow and Umatilla counties. I think what happened was, it got sent in just as a 6th judicial district. They sent it to the headquarters there, and headquarters in Umatilla County, or they just are used to saying to Umatilla County and sent it there. I'm kind of surprised they assumed that they were going to break it up. It'd make a lot more sense to actually separate each county. I'm not really sure why you would assume it'd be broken up between the two counties by Umatilla County. It would make much more sense to, here's the bill, send it over. These are all Morrow County cases, and just like they do for our mental commitments. On mental commitments, we get court examiners. The court retains and the court selects them. They send us the bill, but they're very good about walking that bill across the hallway to us and making sure that we pay it. So they definitely know how to get the money from us pretty well. And so I am somewhat surprised that didn't happen here. And I don't think it's a fault of Morrow or Umatilla counties on that aspect. But I'm very happy that we found this aspect, because primarily is making sure now that money is pulled away as a special fund. And so we keep track of it. We can still resolve in the future here, start getting billed for, maybe we'll pay back Umatilla County or things like that. But at least now it's separated out. So I definitely appreciate Kevin's work on that. And it took a little bit of time trying to delve into this. Another one of my zombie money accounts, it looks like. We have a couple of those that just keep on getting money coming in, that we were very limited in how we spend it.
Thank you, Justin, for that.
Any other questions? Yeah, that's what we got specifically for this part.
No,
Thanks, Justin.
thank you.
Right. Excuse me. Justice Court, not same story. Insurance, software allocations. And the big driver in personnel services is the DB plan contribution changes. So there's nothing specific to call out on that, unless Judge Deals in the audience here, if you'd like to come up and add, or if you have questions for him.
I'm here to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Are there any questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
come back to all adjustments here, there we go. All right, Sheriff's Office. So I alluded to this a little bit yesterday. Accounting wise, there's a big change, and that makes it appear that there's a huge change, especially when you look at emergency dispatch budget. For whatever reason, historically, there was a portion of time for some of our dispatch personnel that was being charged to the sheriff's office department in the general fund. And so that wasn't really being differentiated or reported as dispatch related. It just kind of inflated the budget of the sheriff's office in the general fund, which is our general fund department 113. And likewise, the budget for emergency dispatch, which is fund 207, was being represented probably at less than what it should have been, because substantially, it actually turns out, because most of the personnel expenses, what started out, I think, as maybe a portion, it ended up being most of their personnel expenses were being charged to the general. So we went through and pulled that apart. Again, it's important to be able to see the cost of each program, each office separately. So there's a significant increase. I think there was just over $1 million in if we go down to fund 2,
sort of million 60.
Am I missing it here? I thought I put a note in here on it. I'm missing it. Well, it should have been, it was right around $1 million, just over $1 million of emergency dispatch money that was budget that went from the general fund to emergency dispatch. So it's still going to be covered with general funds. You'll notice there's a significant transfer from general fund to emergency dispatch, because as it turns out, there's not enough revenues in total from dispatch fees and from the 911 tax to cover that, which is nothing new. That's no change there. It's just a little bit more transparent, and it's a little bit easier to see how that whole program is funded.
It's quite a difference.
Yeah. And then the only other significant changes, when we've already talked about these, was the increase in personnel for the deputy positions and the 2 dispatch positions. I see that Sheriff Bowles is also in the room. So if you have any questions for him, or if he has anything you'd like to add.
Great questions, but that has stuff to add. Any questions? So where are we on still on the vacancies?
We're working hard on those. We got people in the background right now, and we get those filled as soon as we can. But to be honest, just like every other police agency around the state, I mean, I just came back from a large meeting in Salem. Everybody's ready for staff, and they're all shorthanded. So we are not as short-handed as some. We are a few down, but we're getting close to being full staff, and I'm really excited about that. So on these, you mentioned these requests for these positions. Since 2015, I've been working trying to get where we have 2 patrol deputies on per shift for the county. Just because we have a large county, and you get something going on, let's say in the south end of the county, that's emergent call. Most of the time you're going to need that second person to come help out, or you're going to be calling somebody out. So we just need the extra coverage. So I've been working for, like I said, since 2015 to try to get to that point. And this right here will put us to 11. So we're close. I mean, so let's say we even had 12, we had 2 on per shift. We have 2 on per shift as long as nobody calls in sick, on vacation, that kind of stuff. Then we have to call people to cover shifts. So that's kind of where I'm trying to get. I mean, from so many years, I started in 2002, we were so short-handed. I mean, it was wild. So.
Well, a lot's happened.
Oh yeah.
Since 2002.
That's right.
I mean, and people don't always consider that.
Right.
You know, but yeah. The more things that are happening, the more, people, the more officers you need. So,
Yeah, correct. That's kind of the reason why we're asking for the position, so.
Any questions?
Yeah, I know it's in the nurse department, but emergency management, they physically moved his office to your, right?
Yes.
Could you explain, and maybe you've done this before, does he report to you or maybe Matt and then, do you work with him to develop his budget or what's you guys' kind of hierarchy relationship there?
Historically, the emergency manager was under the sheriff's office for a number of reasons. I think the biggest factor, I think it's important that the emergency manager is connected to the emergency services. Number one being dispatch. I think it's really important that he's familiar with dispatch, they're familiar with him. I'm used to calling him out, even talking to him. And on our side of the house, we're used to working emergency situations, so it just kind of makes sense. For a short period of time, it switched back to the county. I don't know, it didn't work out or whatever. We have it back. And he moved up to our office. There's going to be another person going to fill that office. So we made space for him up there at the sheriff's office. And I like that a lot better. He's a lot closer for supervision, for questions. We're just building that team morale. It's been a lot better.
No, I wasn't questioning the move. I think it's good.
Yeah.
I was just kind of wondering how you guys' managerial relationship was.
Yep. So yeah, I'm the supervisor, and that makes sense because I used to be the emergency manager, for a number of years. So I can help them out, ask questions, work on the budget. Kevin's a huge help on the budget. I mean, he's done a lot of work for us on the budget aspect of that, so we appreciate that. But yeah, he reports to me on his direct supervisor.
And Chair, if I can make a comment, we've been working with the sheriff's office. One of the things that you may or may not notice on that, we're taking some of these seasonal hires and making them into full-time, specifically with the aquatic patrol and the park patrol, so that they're there full-time. We've had historically a hard time recruiting for them because it's just a seasonal thing.
Yeah.
And what happens is during the off season, they'll come down and help supplement the patrol. And so our hope is that, during the summer, we've got them where they need to be, and the SROs who are off during the summer can supplement patrol. And then in the winter, those the river and the parks will come down and supplement patrol. So it's just something that we've been kind of working to maximize resources. Some of those are covered by grants. And it's a partial increase on the general fund, but an overall bonus hopefully to coverage for the county.
Yeah, once we get them hired and trained up, it's gonna take a year to do that, get everybody hired and trained up. But once we do, I think it's gonna be really good.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, we're excited about it. So
I have, I don't know how long I've been sitting mostly in this area for budget. And that John has come and asked for assistance with additional staffing, and it's been not this year. So I'm really happy to see that it is this year. Because I'm in South Morrow County and I like the additional coverage. And I think it's important that we all have that happening.
I agree. I live down here as well, so it's important.
You don't want to have to go out all the
Right.
time.
And it's a similar story with the additional dispatchers
Yes.
Right.
as well.
Yes.
Yes.
We have dispatchers that, use the restroom for example. Take the headset with them. We need to do something.
Yeah, that's another position that is a real tough job. It's real stressful, and people don't really understand how stressful and that job is. And that's another area across the state that's hurting worse than patrol. They cannot get the staffing to fill those positions. There's neighbor agencies around us that are in worse shape than we are for staffing. We're a few down, 3 down now. But there's other agencies that are way down. And we're lucky that we have the leadership in our dispatch team that we do. Those two gals were just willing to step in and fill wherever needed, and we're lucky to have them for sure. So if we didn't, it'd be a lot worse situation for sure.
I don't think people understand how much training there is to be at this.
It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. When we bring them in for first couple weeks I go down and talk to him, and I'm saying there's a lot to learn with this. I did it. So there's a lot to learn with it. So just take it day by day and step by step. And then now for a few month period, you're just gonna start getting it and go, wow, this is pretty easy now, you know?
Well, and just handling the people on the other side that are so excited, you know, being able to be home.
Yeah.
I just appreciate the whole sheriff's office.
Thank you.
We all do. Bless her baby.
I feel the same way. I just drove from Salem last night. And I'm like, why are you behind your head?
I mean, I'm not even doing anything wrong, because sometimes they come in behind me.
Right.
Okay,
Sheriff,
thanks.
while you're here, do you have any other comments about or anything specific you want to touch on for PNP or the emergency management budget, which is the next one?
It's not really, unless there's any questions. Main emergency manager, one important area was to get him a vehicle that was updated. We currently have an older OHV park vehicle that's working fine, but he's gonna need a new vehicle. So that was one of the areas in our budget, so.
And then I guess the only other, I want to just comment on it while the sheriff's here. Saying only other item related to the sheriff's office, when we get to the CIP fund, you'll see that I added a proposed project to do a feasibility study and look at the sheriff's office as a facility. There's been some issues. The issues were, and there's related to contractor that was working on the roof, but you know, there's still other leaks, and there's problems with that building. When we mentioned the problems with the HVAC system, and I think we're really at a decision point where we need to say, are we gonna, you know, interrupt work and fix what's there, or are we gonna look at something different? And that's kind of what we want to do. So there's some proposed funding to just do a feasibility for that, and actually 2 other facilities projects that maybe would help provide some context information when we go through an exercise of trying to prioritize this stuff. But Sheriff, if you have any comments on related to that.
Yeah, on that building, and I'm not complaining about, I appreciate everybody's work keeping that building in the good shape that it is in. You mentioned the leak. We've dealt with that leak ever since I started in 2002. I mean, I'm serious. It leaked ever since then. And then the last room we had a couple of days ago, and this is after the contractors went their work, it leaked through the ceiling again, and there's 4 tiles that need to be replaced. I just think it's an old building, it's outdated, all the wiring, the security, it just needs to be updated. We need a little bit more office space, and our evidence room, for example, we've got to have a new updated evidence room. I mean, because I can show you our current evidence room, and it literally is just a large closet, and that's not acceptable for law enforcement standards nowadays. So we just, in my opinion, we need a new sheriff's office building. Again, I'm not complaining about our building, I appreciate it, but I see that down the road. In my opinion, we need it now, but you know, that can't happen. So.
Yeah, the other thing I would add about it, one of those roof leaks that we had was right over the top of the server room, and we were talking about this yesterday. We got well, our main file server was doused, and a bunch of other equipment. One of the things, and there ended up not being any emergent damage that needed to be replaced, I guess, and addressed immediately. But then a few months later, there was some splice panels that had gotten moisture on them and took out our network. So yeah, there's some, we need to do something to address it. And I'm just emphasizing that because there's some, not only the critical services that are provided out of there, but there's also some critical network and technology hardware that we need to make sure is kept dry and safe. So
yeah, and Kevin mentioned that room, and really that's the brain of the sheriff's office up there. That's where all the money is and equipment. And that is really important because we're a sister agency with Umatilla County, and our dispatch centers are connected through that equipment. So for example, let's say something's happening in Umatilla County where the staffing is too low, for example, and they can't keep up dispatching, then there's we call it a switch. We hit the switch, and we now can dispatch them and cover Umatilla County and vice versa. And we've had to do that a number of times in the last couple of years to help out Umatilla County. So that room is really important. So when I heard it was thinking, I just panicked. I'm like, oh, it was not good. I mean, I got videos and it was just raining down in there.
Yeah.
And how we got away with not having major damage, we're so lucky.
Can't just throw a room sharp over it.
Good idea, let's try it.
No,
Works for everything.
actually, the contractor did and
Oh.
it works.
That's cool, it got too heavy.
Right.
So any other questions for the sheriff or any of his?
Well, thank you for the information.
You bet.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for being on the budget committee.
It's so fun.
All right, so that takes us to. Well, we kind of, was there any questions on emergency management? I can tell. We kind of touched on some stuff, big decrease in revenues. Those were one-time grants related to the building generators for Irrigan and the Bartholomew building. We talked about those a little bit yesterday. And then the personnel services, that's not retirement plan related, just there's one employee and that he has a different benefit elections and yeah, different benefit elections can drive costs that much, so.
Exactly, this is a switch to the sheriff's department from here, or is it the same?
No, it's the
Same.
regardless.
Are there any questions on that before we go forward? That's good.
So. Finley meters. Maybe just a moment here, to bring it up. This is the license fee fund, and this was just to show you, show the committee, the revenues that the fund balance that we have, the revenues that we have coming in forecasted, so. About just shy of 1.7 million in revenues that, last year. Based on, there is a CPI adjustment in the license fee component, from Finley View, so we're expecting around 2.2 million. And then, again, a majority of that, plus the beginning balance in that fund is allocated to the road department, with the balance going to cover the net expense on the transfer station operations in the general fund.
Okay, well, I got a question on that. Do they, how does that calculator look at? Do they give you the weight tonnage that comes in through a system? They have a system with the.
It's a spreadsheet, and they send us got all the details of that on a monthly basis. Yeah.
Monthly.
And I think we get the payments monthly or quarterly. I think we get the payments monthly, so that would be Fund 219, Economic Development Fund, formerly known as, I think they used to call it Video Lottery Fund, and they changed it in 2021 or 22. So this is primarily video lottery money. I handed out in everybody's place this morning, just based on the discussion yesterday. So this is the fund where we're accommodating the requests for grants related to economic development. I updated what I had provided yesterday with the amount that had been included in the budget in the prior year, just based on the discussion that we had about, the APIS program and whatnot, just so that you have some comparison. The only changes, Morrow County Tourism requested an additional $5,000, and because there was an additional request, I went ahead and gave you a copy of the letter that they had written for that. The other change, so you see South Morrow County Seniors Matter on there. So we had done that initial grant, and that was through ARPA funding for $67,698. and met with Mr. Conklin, and we kind of just talked, we talked about their program, we talked about the success that and the impact that it's had here in Hefner, and just senior programs in general. And so there's a proposed ongoing, as funding allows, obviously, contribution for South Morrow County Seniors Matter for $40,000. And then, I guess this would be my proposal, in recognition that there's, north, it's really more seniors programs that likely need some support. We haven't worked any details out with any specific program, but I proposed another $80,000 to be specified but committed for seniors program support of some sort. Obviously, before expanded, that would be going back to the board for discussion. And Mr. Conklin, if he's got it.
I have a handout, that's okay. If I could just share something about that. So as Kevin said, we appreciate Kevin's help in that of the board of commissioners in supporting our project. Okay. I guess I got enough copies. As Kevin mentioned, we began our senior meal program in July of last year. And on that, I've got a handout with members of our board and what we've done and some of the numbers related to attendance at our senior meal. We average about 75 seniors we feed every week on Tuesdays. We've fed a total number of individuals who have been there at least once, to over 250 people. We have over 50 volunteers who come from every church in Hefner who serve there on a rotating basis. Plus, we have high school students from Hefner High School who come and help us. We got 2 regular volunteers. We employ 3 individuals, a cook, assistant cook, and we started a 1-day-a-week senior center, and we have a senior center coordinator who does that. We've been doing this now since July, and we've had a great response. And I think part of our goal was to improve the emotional, physical well-being of seniors, and we have seen that happen. And also another goal was to connect seniors, community partners that can help them in various ways. On the back of that sheet is a list of all of the different speakers we've had since July. I've recognized a lot of names on there, people from around our community, and that's been a really important part of what we're doing. And I have had conversations with other senior centers, senior meal sites around the area, and indeed, it is a challenge for them to find funding. Some of them are funded to some extent from CAFCO. It's never enough. A lot of them are grant funded like we've been so far. And we appreciate the fact that the county has given us funds, COVID relief funds to get started. But in the future, we would be in a difficult situation as far as finding continued funding. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. And we're very thankful for your help. Thank you, Kevin, for your help.
The number of seniors served is just mind-boggling to me. Just to go in there and see every chair in that room full. It's great. Thank you for doing that.
I think some of our young people too.
Mhm.
We have one that is just once a month, right there, that the church kind of take care of that, and some other individuals.
Mm.
Or,
But to have over 70 people
yeah,
in a community this size come every week.
and I think that the thing that we see is that most important is just getting them.
That's so, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. When you,
The meal isn't as big a deal as the sitting around the table and visiting.
Kim has been there, David's been there on numerous occasions. The atmosphere there is just, enthusiastic. I guess it would be a fair statement. People are conversing, they're glad to be there. It is definitely, and our goal is all along to make it a safe and encouraging environment for seniors, and it is that. And I think it's had a significant impact on seniors in the community of Hefner. And in fact, one of our bigger challenges is that we are maxed out as far as room. And when we fed 87 the other day, we can't have any more just for the sake of the size of our room. And obviously we're we're okay with that challenge, you know, it would be good to have more room, but
Maybe you moved to, oh, but the senior center, the seniors are there, but not, you know, there's always the, film Disney building.
yeah, something maybe that like
That would
that,
nice
but
kids in.
that's okay.
You know, I would like to add one thing.
Yeah.
Is, you know, you talk about the coming together. I think when, people get older and maybe they've lost their spouse, they're, retired, of course. It's really important to keep them connected with other people, you know, I think it helps with mental health, everything, you know, just kind of well-being. So I see that is a big plus. I was really glad to see you get that thing going after COVID shit, this COVID shit is down there.
Yeah,
And it's popular, yeah.
well, and you commissioners had a big role in that when you approved those COVID relief funds. That was a huge help, and we couldn't have started without that. But in the future, of course, you know, we would be continued funding. And we're really frugal with our funds. We do the best we can with what we have. It costs us about $4,000 a month to do what we're doing as far as the meal site. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you're-
So. We're budgeting for about 128,000 in video lottery dollars into that fund. So to accommodate these requests, we do need an additional $240,000. And the way that I've structured that in this budget, that money's coming from a portion of the SIP program revenues, which would otherwise go to other projects or reserves. So.
I got it. Does the lottery, do they require any reports back from us on how the money's spent?
Yes, we have to report on that every year. And we do, and I think we surround the September, October timeframe.
And I guess my second question is, there's a lot of different agencies here. I know, you don't send out the letter, you didn't send out a letter this year?
Not this year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we got a number of most submitted already, just automatically send it in. And they were just requesting the same amount of funds as last year.
I was just wondering as if there's any kind of follow-up on how these funds are spent, or do we want to know, or is it something we should know? Or?
We should, well, specific to video lottery money, we actually have the obligation to monitor and ensure the use is consistent with the restricted use of those funds by, it's restricted by statute. But yeah.
Do you think that's something that the county should ask for a report?
And so,
from
you know what,
groups here on
some of it, you know, like the Watermelon Festival, 4th of July, I mean, those are contributions made for specific events.
Yeah.
You know, and short of, we don't really look back if you ask for the receipts and stuff like that, but for the more broad ones, and the larger amounts, the Hebner Chamber, Boardman Chamber, for example, then yeah, we could certainly and that.
Well, just so you know, you kind of get an idea how the county's taxpayers are being spent, but also, you know, if they ever come back, which is probably because expenses go up, come back, want increases, then I think it might be, you know, okay.
Well, historically, those reports from those entities were at this venue. So when I'm down present.
So on that note, I say Shirley David with the Area Emergency Assistance Center, we made it down. I think that she would be glad to tell us what they've done last year.
Yeah, we used to.
So if it's all right with the chairperson,
Yes, it is.
come on up, Shirley. It's not a problem.
Made the trip, you needed,
Yeah.
now you need to do your work. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. I asked them, I found out that we didn't get notified, so we didn't get to tell you anything ahead of time. So, don't know where the communication broke down, it's something that is,
Just got in a rut here.
got in a rush. Well, my name is Shirley David. I'm a volunteer at the Area Pantry. Ina's on vacation. And, so just wanted to say a couple of things that we've been doing. We've been growing. And Catco, I'm not sure what's going on there, but we seem to not be getting a lot of food from them. And, they've had some turnover, I know, in Pendleton. And, so we're not sure what's happening with our food. So we have been spending, quite a bit more money on food. Ina goes shopping for us. And we spend, probably quote in 6 months, we spent $3,000. Yeah, of the money that we have. Because she has to, and we're talking just staples. We're not talking about any fluff at all. We're talking bread, eggs, milk. Sorry, and Capsule, when we asked them, they don't have an answer. So, and we had to replace our HVAC, so thank you very much for giving us the money for last year. We used part of that, our 30-year-old system. Finally gave up the ghost, and it cost $15,000 to replace it. And we also replaced our back door, so it's easier to put the, when they bring us the food, you can get in the back door now. Because we replaced back doors, so there's double doors back there, they replaced the concrete pad. And that cost us $9,500. So, but we just have, just more clients. We're now open on Thursday. So we're there on Tuesday for 6 hours and Thursday for 2 hours. And Capco's informed us that we should only help the people that have our zip code. And let the other pantries take care of themselves. Well, Miss Ina won't do that. If you come to her and you say you live in Stanfield, you live in Hebner, you live wherever, she's going to give you food that day. Yeah. And when we reach out to Boardman and Hebner, and anytime, they are in need of whatever, and we have an abundance of it. And our clients don't like it, but their clients do. You meet them, and we share. So
Is that, and that's all 3 of them are, so that's what we talked about last year, right? Getting
exactly,
together
yeah,
And being more collaborative with each other. And that's
yeah.
huge deal. So
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and then just yesterday, I tell them gave us, oh my goodness. I don't even know how much, they gave us cheese. And it was in packets small enough that we didn't have to divide it down. And then apparently Lime Weston is gonna do the same thing with potatoes, we got word of that. So that's very nice that our local businesses, are so really nice about helping us out. And then we also, since Ina she spent so many hours, she's increased her hours, that she's out shopping and doing all that. We gave her a wage increase. And so she's doing, phenomenal. And she knows computers, he really is an asset. So, and for him, you can see where we have 8 volunteers. How many hours we spent doing all of the different things. And it just 6 months was from October to March of 2024. So what we have here is just a recap of how our spending was for that 6 months.
Thank you for whoever did that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And thank you for Kirby.
Yeah. So
I'm hearing several different versions of the Capco dilemma. It seems, isn't there a commissioner on the board there? Are you the one? Do you know why Capco isn't really supporting Morrow County to the extent that they probably should be?
I don't think it's just Morrow County.
Oh,
It's not just Morrow County.
what's happening with Capco then?
They had to cut back in their funds. And so, that's what they said is why they cut back on a lot of things. They cut back with the student.
Yeah.
And that's what they said is they're just getting less money for that. So they do have a nice, they moved into the East Oregon building.
Yeah, they have a kitchen there.
And they're getting ready to, I think maybe, they also own the Tumalum lumber. They're gonna store food there. And I think they're gonna sell that because the East Oregonian building has a lot of room in the back, and I think they're gonna. And I think, I don't know what they're gonna do with their other property up on the hill where they have it. But, yeah, that's kind of. That's kind of their thing, they say they're getting less money in, so there's less money going out. I did ask them though, and this is kind of a side thing, is they have a housing program. I don't know, I think I talked to you about it, where they give $20,000 to first time home buyers.
Oh, no, I haven't heard.
Yeah, and I heard about this, and I said, when I first heard about this 2 or 3 months ago, I said, do you guys do this in Morrow County? They go, well, we've done it in Boardman. And so I have the card, I said, well, I want somebody to come over and tell Hefner about it. So I thought maybe they could come to Wickliffe
That'd be
sometime,
great.
because you guys would be a
Good
good.
bundle.
Yeah,
Is
and it
there,
goes to 25 if your parents or no relative, I think it's just your parents have never owned a house.
well,
You do have to go to some classes,
right,
so you wanna go to Pendleton a few times and get 20
yeah,
grand.
well, I would, well, I wouldn't work for me because I already am home, but I would send them, like. I mean, it's certainly, people are funny what they don't understand, but you know, they're like, well, that's 100. You're going, what are you doing? It's worth $20,000.
Yeah. Well, I told them, I said, well, you could tell me and I'll, and they said, and I could relay it to the WICFED's the natural one, because they've given out the grants before and they really ingrained in housing. They said, no, we'll come over. So I got the card of the woman whenever you want to schedule her in on a meeting or.
Yeah,
whatever you want
we
to do
should.
that. So
It's
these-
next
so
few
then-
months.
Yeah, then you get the basics, you know how to get the information. It's not just Boardman that's getting all
Right.
Well, and also the number of people that contact us for something like that, but we're not doing that. So I already have a base of
Yeah,
people.
I was surprised when I first heard of it, because I never, we did,
Right.
I was on, we did a lot of work with housing, and I'd never heard of that program before, and they go, oh, yeah, but we haven't given out any effort. So, anyway, maybe we'll tap into that here, but,
That would be great.
okay.
Okay, we kinda got.
Go
That's
ahead,
all
I'll
right.
try.
That's all right.
Sorry.
No. The only thing since our building is old, our flooring and inside needs to be something done to that. And so that's our next project, is to work on getting the carpet up and, doing some internal stuff in the building itself. The building is 30 years old. And then we want an ADA, front door access ramp.
Oh, okay.
And a door. That goes in the office. So that's kind of what we're projecting for next year is some of the things that we're gonna be looking at. And I'm sure that we're gonna be increasing. Anybody has any questions? Kind of a nutshell.
Very good.
On the ADA access, there
Mhm.
should be some funding available to do that through the state, I think, isn't there?
Oh, is that right?
I think I
Okay.
read something about. So. But it's something you might look into.
Okay.
the ADA
No, she's
access.
very good about that. Okay, sure,
Yeah, I'll look into it as well and see if I can.
yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments? And right now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Do you want to wait for his chair, so it's. Yeah, about right.
This winter, so if that,
We need to take a break.
Yeah.
You want to recess for
let's take a quick break.
Thank
Thank you.
returning?
Returning in. Not gonna be a question. Take 15 minutes. You can just give us like a, how it's going.
It's going great. Since I began in 2021, our numbers has changed a lot. I think when I started it, it was 20 on Mondays and like 50 on Thursdays. Now we're up in the 80s on Mondays and up of 100 on Thursdays. Yesterday I did 113 boxes for families, and I did extra 2 because they got there a little bit late. I was still there at the pantry, but yeah, it's growing.
Good. And tell me, what would a typical box?
Contains or, we try to put breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And we also add a section where you can pick one item. And I usually put like sugar, flour, oil,
Okay.
salt, all big containers. Well, not big containers, but yeah.
Something big enough to
Yes.
bake with it or something.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions of us?
No, just thank you for all the support that you have given to the pantry, and yeah, this is my first time doing it, so.
Are there any questions of the committee?
Is there any board that goes to a backpack thing for kids? You know, I mean, I know I'm not telling you, but I just was curious if they.
Mary Killians is the one, I think she started it. I haven't, I don't know if she's,
I didn't expect. I didn't-
Yeah.
I think public safety might do that.
Okay, I didn't know if it was.
They do the helmets, bicycle helmets, they do backpacks, they do some of the other.
Yeah, it's they pack their lunch, they get it for me, they pack food.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This, the school has also called the food pantry if if they're in need, if they know of a family and it's not on the days that we're there.
Okay.
So we also, Perla also, has done boxes
emergency.
for the schools and stuff.
I think that was part of the wraparound services, and they've got a backpack and full of food and send it home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great program.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
program. I've heard it. That's okay.
The other program that we do is the holiday box, so that's like, late November, late December is when we do holiday boxes, yeah.
Sounds good. Are there any other questions? Well, we appreciate your coming.
No problem,
thank you.
thank you. We appreciate all the help from you guys too.
It appears that you're being funded as a $50,000
Mhm.
that will stay apparently in the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, let you be on your way. Drive carefully.
Well, thank you, we
So
appreciate it.
That was quick, huh?
Yeah, that wasn't, thank you,
It's good seeing you. Thank you.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
thank you.
Yeah.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, before we leave this page, I'd like to know more about this Morrow County tourism contract. I remember us talking some about it last year, but I'm just curious who's that under and what do we get for that?
So, so Carrie Walkley is is our contracted tourism coordinator. She, works, the contract that we have is about $32,000 with her. This amount for 5,000 is an additional amount asking for some coordination with the other Chamber of Commerce's for additional publications for state and regional publications for tourism to drive interest in our area. Originally, this was reporting up to our planning and department, and it's transitioning over to our assistant county administrator, who starts this next Wednesday. And we'll be taking an active review on those services and such, making sure that we get a good bang for the buck, and consider if we want to continue with the contract position and pull it more interim over the next 6 months.
So she has gone from community to community and coordinated with the chamber and did town halls. So I would, there, we've had 2 or 3 in Etna, I missed 1, so, but I've been to 2, so I think there's been 3. Where she's done polling, and the chamber's also involved in that, of what you think are benefits in our community, what kind of tourism you would like to see. So like Hefner, we have hunting, fishing, biking, hiking, and that kind of stuff, or things that would help improve tourism. She's done in depth, like they're about an hour and a half when she's here, and then she comes back and does a presentation, kind of starts it over. I don't know what the end game is, but she's probably met with our chamber director, I don't know, 10 or 15 times, and I know she's done that and with the other chambers. So I don't know who she meets with in the Iona in Lexington, but or they yeah, maybe. But anyway, she's got quite a professional looking presentation, slideshows of everything that's going on in Boardman and coordinating St. Patrick's Day, you know, trying to promote what we have. So that's what I'm seeing her do.
And then she's sending that out from the state. Is that what you were saying? Is that what you're?
Yeah, there's certain kind of tourism magazines, publications that they're in. I've got a couple in my office on them. She writes articles for those. Tries to get event and you know, calendar events put out for the different events that we have throughout.
Yeah, and there is a statewide calendar thing. I don't know what it is. I sat in on it when she just one-on-one with the chamber. And she's coordinating, so all of the events in Morrow County will be on that, whatever entity it is that promotes tourism in the state, where you would be able to go and Google what's happening anywhere on Media, and then pick where you want to go. So that's a new thing too that she brought into the chambers, and any chamber member can get on the website and pop into that calendar. So, or you don't have to be a chamber, you can go to the website. So,
Yep, we're moving into the capital improvement project fund, CIP fund. So this fund is a reserve that we're utilizing for accumulating reserves and also accounting for and expending those reserves for large strategic projects that such as building construction. I see that in the budget books, it looks like the table actually chopped off the last column, so I'd ask Sabrina to run over. I just printed some out so you can see all of the columns. But I'll start talking through this. So essentially, what we have going into the beginning of fiscal 24, we had budgeted the amounts. Oh yeah, you can see that. Oh, thank you, Sabrina.
Yep.
She's out.
Thanks. Yeah, big enough. I don't need my glass.
That was the idea. All right.
And it's hard to make it that big, huh?
Yeah. That's a fact. My arms like on it.
Okay, so in the top section of this report, and basically what this detail is, and I know it's a lot of numbers, and it's confusing, but I wanted to just make sure it was really clear on how the money was moved around and being allocated. So for fiscal 24, there were 4 projects that had funds allocated to them in the budget. And that was the transit facility, the circuit court building, public health building, and the public works building. And so public health and public works, those are more, recognition, they're carryover from prior years where they had already started accumulating reserves, and recognition that there needs to be something done in the relatively near future to address those. So let's start building reserves. Back in FY 23, I didn't do that budget, but, there was additional money that was allocated to the Hefner, historic courthouse building. So in FY 24, because of where we were at in obtaining the grant from the state for a new circuit court building, the thought was that our position would be strengthened if we had, well, it wasn't a thought, we were told our position would be strengthened if we had the funding or portion of the funding there and ready to go. At that time, we thought it was going to be a $12 million project, or 12 in that price range anyways. And so we reallocated resources in this fund, in the budget to show, basically we had about 6.8 at that point, then committed to the circuit court building, 1.5 and to the public health project, and 1 million to public works project. And basically transferred the commitment of resources from the historic courthouse to circuit court building. Again, just to consolidate that. Not that we didn't want to do that. It was want to do anything with the existing courthouse. It was more the need to show committed funds. And as that project's moved forward, obviously that need to have committed funds remains. Also in FY 24, we received some unbudgeted PRES and SIP funds to the tune of $8.2 million. And discussions with the Board of Commissioners on where to allocate those funds to. We ended up just allocating those into the CIP fund in general, but not to specific projects. As I was preparing the FY 25 budget, obviously the circuit court building project has moved forward and is progressing. And there's a timeline associated with it. We have some high level figures from the contract, from the project manager, I'm sorry, on what the FY 25 expenditures may look like. You know, and this is regardless of what side it's put, you know, unless it's delayed to the point where nothing happens in FY 25 while we decide where it goes, then you know, then none of this money is going to get spent. So so those funds were accounted for, and then I allocated based on the needs of the building, or based on the needs of the project. We have adequate cash to accomplish that project, and likely more, with cash on that we have on hand. And so that's the approach that I took, given the relatively high cost of money right now, and the really no real declines, I guess, expected on interest rates in the near future, that I've seen. Is probably going to be more effective to utilize cash for these projects. Again, purely from my financial perspective. So that's the approach that I took. You can see of the $8.2 million of the other resource that went into that fund through FY 24 that's not allocated was some pretty substantial interest revenue, about $356,000. So moving into the number 2 on the sheet here was the step where I allocated uncommitted resources to projects. The circuit court building, I allocated, there was 2 PRES distributions. You can see the details that I allocated. It's a total of about $2.7 million. Also allocated some of the PRES funding to reestablish the reserve for the historic courthouse building, just shy of $500,000. And then $3 million of the SIP community development charge that we have received towards the circuit court building. Then I'd originally done it where I, put press money all towards these projects, but after listening to the feedback from the board, when we had the last discussion about this and about the bridge reserves, ended up moving, you'll see this in the next box down, where instead of using the additional the remaining press funds to allocate to projects, use general fund surplus, and that we needed to put somewhere to reduce the balance in our general fund, and put the CRES dollars to the road, to the bridge reserve that's being accumulated, that's funded in the road fund. So long story short, and then I also made some additional allocations to the public health and public works building, just for the budget, just based on what was done this prior year. You also see expenditures, like I already talked about, for feasibility studies for those 3 projects to help gain some information and determine the scope, so that we can maybe prioritize those and get 1 or more of those moving forward. So long story short, what you see at the bottom line would be the forecasted fiscal year 2025 budget ending balance for each of the projects. 651,000 for transit facility. I didn't allocate anything additional to that. We were looking for around, it was right around that $600,000 mark for potential matching funds for a federal grant, and is to my knowledge that we did not win that application, that grant, in the last fiscal year, and until that's more solidified and clear going forward, and unless the board felt otherwise, I wouldn't recommend allocating any more money towards that, because again, it's supposed to be just matching funds provided by the county. That was the original intention. Total of well, at the end of the year, and this would be net of the expected $4 million in expenditures for the project, $12.4 million allocated for the circuit court building. That basically covers our 50% match with about a 10% contingency on the total cost of the building, assuming that there's typically some overruns, and given where we're at without having a full design, and the budget's kind of loose at this point, but that leaves with adequate funding allocated towards that project, that we can cover the county's portion of it. And then $2 million allocated to the public health building, $1.5 million allocated to public works building project, and $500,000 allocated for the existing historic courthouse. And all of that with an estimated, as of the end of the year, because we're assuming some pretty significant interest revenue, about $600,000 coming into the fund, would leave about $3.8 million that is not allocated to any particular project at this point. We'll revisit that once we, as we put together a plan and prioritize.
That doesn't include the $2 million for the bridge fund, right?
No, that's been taken out of this. So yeah, net of that $2 million that was moved out for the bridge. Yeah,
I see that. Okay.
Yeah, so basically, if everything plays out and the committee or board didn't want to make any changes, these would be the amounts allocated to the projects in the fund, and we still have $3.8 million of funding that's in there in the CIP fund that's not allocated to any specific project.
Is that 1.5 public works building for the property?
So the prior public works director, I've been talking to Eric a lot about this last year. He had a vision. The directors changed, maybe the vision might change a little bit. When I spoke with Eric last about it, I'm our public works director.
Yeah.
He wasn't 100% certain if he shared the same vision, and thought that would be the best path forward for a public works building improvement. And so he was unclear, but he felt there was a need to do something. So rather than whether we're talking a remodel or a new building or buying a building, it's going to cost more than $1 million probably.
Right.
So The thought was we'll continue to accumulate those reserves. Probably, to a point and until we have a more definitive path. And that's why we wanted to do a feasibility study, review the space needs and requirements and have somebody kind of start putting together what that would look like to move forward. As far as geographic location, I'd have to get that feedback from Eric. I know that he wasn't necessarily thinking on the north end of the county. He was thinking of doing something in Lexington, where they're currently at. Whether that's changed, I don't want to speak for him.
Well, I know there's that property, and so I didn't know if anything on hold is the answer. Okay.
But something coming.
And with the sheriff's office, then it's just in the planning, having someone look at it.
Right, so because that wasn't a project that had been added to the fund, I didn't.
Okay.
I feel pretty strongly about that one. There's some issues there, and it's impacted just operations for the whole county, not just the sheriff's office this year. So, but I didn't want to be too presumptuous and allocate a bunch of funding without talking to the budget committee and receiving guidance. And again, where the other projects were already established and receiving some commitment of funds that hadn't been. But I would like to get that. Wanted to get it on the radar, and I wanted to get some request some budget funding so that we could start to look at it, evaluate what that.
Do you know the history on the sheriff's office? It's 40 years old.
It's 40 years old and used to be the CSEP.
Part of it
used to be the CSEP.
that addition on the end.
Yeah.
And it's been paid for, I assume, or not paid for, or I don't know where we sit on that sheriff's office.
Oh, we don't
have any money on it, right?
So there's that whole lot next to it.
So
There's a couple ways to approach it. I mean, keeping it in Hefner, we still want to keep it up on the hill for the radio broadcasting capabilities. So whether we move it into that lot, build there, and then tear down this other one, spend parking, there's options to it, but we want to see what really
that's what
necessary.
your feasibility study is looking at.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
A couple things that, it's an inherited building, which is awesome, but then you got the challenges of it. There's no training room, conference room that you fit for all hands kind of training. If you ever go up there, it's not, I don't know if you want a sheriff's department being welcoming, but at least present to go through the front doors.
It's interesting.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting.
And so
it's a piecemeal project.
yes. And so it's something we need to start looking at, and not an immediate need, but well, some people would say immediate need. We need to make some adjustments for technology so we're not exposed, but we need to start thinking about it.
Looks like we're in pretty good shape.
I got a question. It's kind of long term. Now, can we revisit the discussion we had a little bit yesterday? You're thinking about doing some long range capital improvement planning, correct? Okay. Now, the budgets we have now are a lot different, like in 15 years ago. I mean, you had the coal plant and, things went along and they pretty much were the same. With these budgets now, there's so much money coming in from SIP. I mean, if I just think about the projects we have now that are going to be coming online, you have 5 data centers in Prez. You have another data center that was got its zoning change approved out on Tower, and whether or not it looks like we have Sunstone with their pilot program getting ready, couple to, and then we have another solar farm that's 5,000 acres. But I don't think they've made their deal yet as far as a SIP or pilot program. Yeah, Wheat Ridge talked to us about. See, so everything's kind of it's a good thing. I mean, when money, but here's my question to you is and then also, like, we always know some of these projects will be coming out of SIP agreements. Some of the older energy projects, So my thought is, do we need to give some thought to are we going to try to get projections of what's, yeah, because we also talked about the roads and being able to make somehow spread this out, you know, beyond the bubble, if you want to put, if that's what it's gonna be, you know? Have you given some thought about, do we need to try and get projections 5 years down the road? What do you suggest?
I
mean,
don't,
how far down-
I
let me
will
ask you
do,
this.
I will do projections.
Let me ask you this, how far down the road, when you're talking about later this summer, looking at doing some capital improvement, projections and planning? How far down the road are you looking, 5 years?
So if I do a financial forecast, I'll typically do it I'll do a 5-year, 10-year, and you know, out much past 10 years, it gets a little bit loose, but I've done them out to 30 plus years when I was at a utility. So they you know, I'll typically do a 5-year and a 10-year. The development of the industrial development, that's a tough one. Because you know, what assumptions do you base that on, right? You base it on today. You know, those programs could change dramatically overnight based on, you know, what happens with the state legislature, right? So yeah, I don't typically include the anomalies is assumptions when I'm looking at a forecast, because it's usually more geared towards what's sustainable operations and what are recurring and sustainable revenues that we can expect. But it's such a big piece at this point. There needs to be a plan in place to what do we do, and so that's why, you know, I start thinking of why if we have a well put together capital plan and prioritize projects that, gosh, you know, we get a $5 million chunk of money here that was not expected. We already have a good idea of what we want to allocate that towards and start moving. That's the whole point of that project.
I think that's a great idea, because what percentage of our budget now is anomaly, so to speak? I mean,
Well, that's the
have you ever seen anything like it?
We got 6.5, yes.
Yeah. This much.
I mean, I was with you for 7 years when the very first data center opened, and saw our revenues grow from, gosh, they were 60 million, 70 million or so when the first year I was there, and then it just went over 100 million the last year I was there, so almost double.
Okay.
So yeah, it's actually it's a unique circumstance, but yeah, it's a good problem to have.
Oh yeah, it's good. But see, say as a new energy project comes online with SIP or the CREZ, you know, we're not always sure when Amazon is going to actually build out. Be pretty close, you know. And over here, you're going to have your prioritized capital improvement projects. So as the funds come in, you know, 1 or 2 years, look down the road, you know, and maybe the SIP start coming off and we're losing that out of it. Then you just kind of go like, just kind of have that priority list over here to fund it like that, right?
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
That's the whole idea.
Okay.
Projects that are like these that are 40, you know, like bridges and stuff, that are gonna carry over for 30, 40 years, is where you really want to focus that money on, because it's not an ongoing source, right?
Right, and just
use discretionary dollars for, you know, some of these other capital projects, you can use general fund tax dollars for.
Yeah.
So as things come out of the SIPs and enterprise zones, your general fund tax dollars are going to go up, and you can use them to finance buildings, but you cannot use them to build a bridge.
Right.
But, I'm sorry, but also though, as they come out of the CREZ and the SIPs, they go into property tax.
yeah.
Their value is, then they become taxes straight to the county.
In
But they're reduced, the value is reduced, but it's gotta be sort of equivalent because of the value that they're paying on in the CREZ and the SIP is low.
Right.
But the flexibility is.
Right, yes, the flexibility.
Well, it's still pretty flexible. It just can't be used for roads.
Right.
Yeah.
Which in a county our size is.
Yes.
No roads, no anything else.
Right.
Yeah, and then the other important thing, and it probably goes without saying, we have a plan and public input, right? We wanna, and that goes back to some of the strategic planning stuff that, you know, we get input on what should those priorities be, and that certainly pertains not, you know, also to the investment of capital. So some of it, we're driving that, but outside input has to drive that too.
Well, I think it's a good idea what you got, is because, I mean, we get these projects, you know, all kind of jumbled up in a basket, you know, and you're looking at all of them, you're going, okay, you know, you got this, and you got that, and you got this and that. This will put some order into it, I think.
Yeah.
When you do this, okay.
So, all said and done, if this all occurs the way you plan, it's planned, well, about just shy of $21 million in that fund at the end of the year. I would also, if there's any unanticipated or unbudgeted revenues that are specific for capital projects, I would probably just default to putting it in this fund, leaving it unallocated until we revisit it. And
I think so, especially with the plan you have in, to move forward with a projected capital improvement. I think that's the best way, myself, I don't know about you guys. But, yeah, just put it in there and don't earmark it for any particular thing.
thank you, good discussion. So now a simple one, Forest Service Title III monies. This is the second Secure Rural Schools program. If you recall, we had, actually we're doing it in the comment, excuse me. In the comment period right now for the use of some of those Title III funds for the search and rescue rate for the sheriff's office. We do expect to see a little bit more of that revenue in fiscal 25. It should be about the same as what we've been getting. You'll notice there is a bit of a materials and services and capital outlay budget. It's unclear some of the timing towards the end of the year if the sheriff's office will be able to have that vehicle all outfitted and up and ready to put into service by the end of this fiscal year. So there might be some carryover funding. So that's what those dollars are for there. If they do have it finished in this fiscal year, then there won't be any planned expenditures, but there will be appropriated expenditures. So if we wanted to look at you know, doing like the Firewise programs or something to that effect, we could certainly go down that process with those funds. The equity funds. This is the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund managed by GEODC, Greater Eastern Oregon Development Corporation. Has not seen any activity other than just repayment of loans as scheduled, and no other significant changes or activity was included in the.
I have a comment. For about a year and a half, GEODC doesn't promote this equity fund, but I help people find funding for projects through WICFED. And so I contacted them about a year and a half ago, and there's no committee for review, which is Morrow County. That's so they won't give loans out to that because we need to have someone appoint the bank representation. I don't remember what the committee's made up of exactly.
It is one, there's somebody from the bank and there's somebody from the county and yeah.
So the Banner Bank person left, so that somebody needs to so this fund will never do anything.
I will follow up on that.
Thank you.
Give me 60 days.
I'll give you 61 days.
But
On the 62nd day, she's calling it.
It's great fun, and it's a really big benefit to small businesses starting out, especially when interest rates are between 8 and 9. It's a bridge loan. So they have to have funding in place, but they can still finish out their projects or whatever with a lower interest, so it brings down that 8.5 to, could bring it down to 4, which makes it palatable startup cost. So I really like to see us get back on board with this.
Yeah, I've administered a fund like this before, revolving loan fund for economic development before. And I actually had reached out, we connected with, I can't remember their names, with GDODC.
Yeah.
For
Chris.
Yeah, and we had scheduled meetings and they had to reschedule, I had to reschedule, and that just went on for a few weeks and then budget happened, so. But absolutely, it's a great program and there needs to be some work done with it, and I will absolutely commit to following up on that.
Talking about bringing that in-house administration.
Not necessarily,
Because I've tried to deal with this too, and well,
Well, Tina doesn't like it. She doesn't think that they're getting paid enough to do
What,
this.
yeah, what value added is Capco bringing to this?
You mean GODC?
I mean, GODC.
Well, they vet, they have the loan documentation, they vet it. Yeah, no, I mean, they have the loan app on their website, and then they
I know.
vet the people,
they essentially would act as the loan
and they
officer.
collect it.
And they administer the loans once they're given, which is not something that we really have the resources to do in the house. So there is value there, but with these types of programs, they have various loan funds and sources of funding available to them that they can choose to promote. It has to be, I don't want to say easy, but it has to be accessible and not onerous to deal with. And it sounds like maybe because maybe turnover and whatnot, lack of a committee, that's been the case.
Yeah, it's like, no, it's, the county appoints the committee.
I
And,
think it's GODC not following up with the county if the.
well,
Not in charge of the committee, so he appointed.
right, she told me she didn't know who to talk to, and there's no information. I mean, she has a big list of complaints. And also, the amount of money they make managing this, they don't think is adequate. I don't know, there might be things that need to change a little bit. I don't know, we pay them a percentage of the loan amount per
Well, they're never
manager.
get anybody if they get.
Well,
Well, no, we have a number of outstanding loans.
I know, outstanding, but I tried this, when I was in German Wickbed, I tried, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. I tried to, there's a business that was interested in this, and I called them over there, and all I got was, I don't know, maybe you should talk to so-and-so. I got back about 4 people and never got to the spot. And I don't think they even had their applications online.
well, to do now, I found.
Yeah, well, they didn't at that
Yeah.
time. I mean, I said, how do I get an application? I don't know.
It's a frustrating process. I called, and I was on the board at the time. Finally, I called the executive director, and I'm like, hey, if I'm going a regular person off the street would have never, ever got a response. So it's a frustrating process. But they're better now.
I will follow up on this and circle back with.
Yes, thank you.
It's like the current members of the committee were all appointed March 25th, 2015. So it's.
They probably don't exist on the board.
No.
Okay, you do not start with calling them though.
Moving on. Debt service funds. So. Proposing a little bit of a change, just to how this is funded. I think when I proposed this last year, I said the goal was to have at least at a minimum a year's worth of debt service in deposited in the fund. As I was getting towards the end of balancing the budget and looking for places to move some of the surplus reserves that we had, I had an idea on this one and ended up being what I wanted to propose in the budget. So if we were to increase, and so the principal portion, contributions of the principal portion for our debt service for the next 5 years, if we were to fund that into the debt service fund in FY 25, and then on an ongoing basis, each year, just add the next year's worth of debt, principal debt service to it. Based at the current rate of returns, that'll generate enough interest revenue to cover the interest costs on the funds, or for the outstanding loan. Obviously, we could do more, and it would start to cover the cost of the principal. We could do less and leave it the way it is now. But I think that gives us a good, certainly, the advanced fund, the debt service fund like that gives us a good position. It's not something that we have to worry about affecting our cash flows on an annual basis. And if there are any fluctuations in resources or expenditures in a particular year, we have a good surplus built up. Any questions on that? It makes sense. And just wanted to mention too, I don't know if I put this in my. Yeah, the interest on the loan that the county currently has, it's 1.79% interest, so there is no benefit to prepaying or advance paying that whatsoever. So I just wanted to, yeah.
Whoever carries that loan is gonna wish they had.
Yeah. Okay, next one, opioid abatement fund. This is a new one. County's been receiving, we started in the last fiscal year, receiving money for the opioid related class action lawsuits. The money's coming in from a ridiculous number of places, and they all have to be reported to, and it's rough. But we've so far we've had about $75,000 in deposits, and that's going to continue for a long time. The funding can be used for mitigation of impacts of opioid abuse and use in the communities, or prevention. I know that there's been some discussions with CCS. I don't know that there's anything concrete that's in place and moving forward yet, but we need to get this money pulled out of the general fund. It's certainly a restricted revenue, and this establishes that and allows for the transfer. I did a budget for the full amount in materials and services. There's not a specific use for it yet, but I wanted the funding available so that if we move forward with CCS or any other programs to get these funds put to work for us, that it would be there and available. All right.
One question. Could that go to a system and diversion program if the money we get from the state's not quite enough? When I can ask you,
I would need to.
Yeah.
Okay. It's gotta be opioid. And then I think we could buy Narcan for the sheriff's office if we wanted to, you know. Yeah, there's, as long as it's opioid related.
And through that, would that something we could help with the deflection program? For House Bill 4002?
Yeah, that's what Matt was just asking. I need to look into that more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, just in case. Yeah, just in case. I mean.
Yeah, okay. SIP revenue. So historically, the SIP revenues that have come into the county, they established a fund for every SIP agreement. I don't know why we don't need it. We don't need an individual fund for every. We don't even really need a fund for SIP revenue. We know where it's going to get distributed before we receive it. We know where it's going to go. And keep in mind, every fund that we have, it's like having another business on the books that has to be accounted for. And we have over 50 of them. Counties 10 times our size, 12 to 15. So in an effort to reduce and minimize, I know that I just talked about 3 different new funds that we had to create. There was we wanted to make sure that we did have the ability to account for it. So when I was talking through this with the treasurer, we decided for fiscal 25, let's consolidate all of those into a single fund, with the potential for the next budget, we'll just eliminate the funds, because again, we already know where those revenues need to go. Once by the time that we actually receive them, so. For FY 25, I identified the funds that basically would consolidate into this, and you'll see that this lines up with the discussion on the SIP revenues that the county will receive and the county will distribute or retain for fiscal 25.
I had a question about that when I went through it at home. About what about the funds that go to schools and rec districts, et cetera, but we've already covered that by putting them in.
Yeah.
Could you give me an example of an expense that was here, that was tagged to the SIP fund? I see we got 71.
Well, so there's the contractual ones, so the contribution of the county's portion to schools and to CREA. But other than that, it's just utilized to fund other departments, funds and programs, and I've kind of talked about those as we've gone along. If you go back and look at the overview slides on the revenue, I identified where all of the budgeted, where all of the SIP revenues would be going towards in this budget.
Okay.
And so that's why we don't really need a fund. If we got an approved budget and we've identified the uses of all those SIP revenues, we can just put it right there and skip a whole bunch of steps to the county.
It goes there. I was thinking more of an expense to have the fund or administer the fund. No, this is just dispersing the money.
Yeah, and see, right now, what we do is we receive it into a fund and then we disperse it all.
Right.
And then that's that's another fund that has to be accounted, audited, and managed, and extra transactions.
So the comment I'll make on this one, I like it, that it does show how much money comes into the county, and that, you know, this $26 million that 2.6, but it doesn't, the county doesn't get to keep, we are obligated to send it someplace else. So we show that we only get to actually spend 3.9. So from that aspect of it, I like this shows that. Because it's all in one spot. Was it?
Would it would a report that details the receipts and uses suffice, because it would look fairly similar to this? Would we is a fund necessary, I guess?
From the standpoint of the board, I would say that a report would suffice, but if anybody from the public, and probably there aren't that many people in the public that speak this, that go and look at the budget. But if they went through there, then they could see in one spot that here's how much money SIP is actually coming to the county. And again, how much county's obligated to spend someplace else funding other things, and how much the county actually gets to spend for its own discretion.
Would it be practical maybe to think of it in this way, as the discussion we just got done with our, you know, the revenues now compared to 15, 20 years ago, or, well, they're not down, but you never know. Is to try to project out based on what we know today, what the SIP and all these other funds and the CRES and the pilot project out what what's going to be coming in over 4 or 5 years, and just have a report like that, or is that something that's something
Well, that would be part of a revenue
have to do
forecast.
that? Yeah. So
And SIPs are big enough that I would take a stab at them.
okay, because I think that would help a lot. And, okay.
You know, just for sake of transparency, I mean, I know Mike has some reports, I reference them quite a bit. Might be good just to get that on our website, just so we can point to people and say, here's what's coming in now. I mean, he's got those breakdowns of, you know, this one's paying this much and suddenly disappears on this date and reverts back, and just arming people with information. Absolutely. So I get a lot out of Mike's presentation, to be honest. So I think the public, when they get the chance to watch those, it certainly puts a light bulb off that, you know, there's a lot of good going on with that stuff. So
I
access on the website would be nice.
yeah.
And, Jeff, to your point, I hear it loud and clear, I really think that we can get there with reporting. And, there's rules about, I mean, some of these funds that we have don't even qualify under the accounting rules and GASB pronouncements to be funds. This is what SIPs were one of them. All that is just general fund. And, because they're not, but I will, before anything's done, we'll certainly, I want to make sure that you feel like there's enough transparency.
So, you know, I know
And
GASB, FASB are different things, you know, regular financial. I guess it'd be more audits, but, you know, if there was an appendice or a footnote or, you know, something for, you know, that it's kind of attached to the budget, but it's not the budget, if that makes sense. So again, if somebody, you know, maybe at the very front, you know, for with the enterprise zone monies, SIP monies, see attachment A or appendice, something like that, and there is your transparency. And it's referenced at the front of the budget, and somebody can actually see it, and then it's not your fault. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I felt like maybe I did that.
And I missed
it in the revenues. If that's not what you're thinking, then certainly, please let me know. But I added this page on where the sources of the is coming from, and then this page on.
Okay, I didn't see that. So that does.
And it was a long time ago.
We've come a lot since then. I absolutely.
No, but that's, you're right, that's it. Okay, so I think that is.
Okay. And I'm not saying let's get rid of it this year anyways.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure that there's no issues with accounting for it.
Yeah.
And
The streamlining is a good thing.
Yeah.
That's good.
all right. Resiliency fund.
Tell me what this is.
I really don't know what the fund is. I can tell you what we made it last year. Last year we got rid of all, because there was a bunch of general fund dollars in there, if you remember.
Yeah.
Last year, as well as the ARPA funds that had been received, and there's a little bit of everything, and I'm not really sure what the original intention of the purpose of the fund was, but what we made it into last year, we got all those general funds moved out of there just so that we could segregate the ARPA and the LATCF grants, which were advance funded federal grants. And when we receive federal grants in advance, we do need to keep those segregated from other funds. So that's what we made it into last year.
Well, because that word rings a bell to be like a feel good thing. Resiliency.
I don't know if
Look
it's,
it up in the dictionary.
Well,
I did.
yeah, and you know, sometimes governments will set up a fund just as a rainy day fund, which is,
So maybe that's what that is.
yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, we've incorporated it now into the individual funds to represent that as an ongoing item, rather than having this bucket of money that just seems like it's there.
But I looked at that and I thought,
But if you notice, after this year, we're looking to kind of close it out.
yeah, I think at one point there was a kind of a grants to cities program,
Yep.
maybe. And I noticed that those were going in and out of this fund as well. So it's kind of been used for a lot of different stuff. But
We're trying to get away from the catch-all.
right now, the money that's in it is the
Right,
You don't get to do that.
what is it?
but,
We appreciate that.
well, I also think there's no way to know what's going on if you don't read the budget. And I wouldn't sit down and read the budget, even though I'm very interested in it. It's a lot, but to sit here and have him tell me everything is easy. So-
Thanks for making this stuff up.
I mean, I get paid, I'm not donating. It's great.
I'll let that
You will
go.
contract after.
It's a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Question, well, you made a statement that brings up a question. the county always did give funding to the cities. Are they not doing that anymore? I didn't see it in here.
It's through the enterprise zone.
We're, okay, so the enterprise zone is picking up for, and the county is not.
Well,
Well,
it's in the county still, but yeah,
Oh, well, I know.
yeah, just using a different fund source. We're using a different fund. source.
The funds are coming from the. All right.
Yeah, the grants to cities were just discontinued around the same time as the enterprise zones.
started having money
To have money just.
Okay.
And I would like to mention, as my own counselor, we get 200,000 a year credit. We would only get like 55,000.
Right, I know.
Now you get 600.
We can better utilize. it.
Yeah, now you get 600.
Yeah.
It's not a precedent.
No, it's not. a-
Oh, okay.
You don't want it to be. That's why.
Let's live moment to moment.
In the moment.
In the moment, there we go.
So once this fund is depleted, I'll recommend closing this fund. But for right now, it has the two grants, the ARPA state and local fiscal recovery funds. So that was the original COVID-19 federal grant that the county got. In the amount of $2.2 million. And then the subsequent one that I spoke about yesterday, the local and tribal consistency fund grant. That we have in there for $731,000. If you take a look up at the screen. I've got a reconciliation of, I'll make this a little bit bigger for everybody. Whoa.
That's really big.
Can everybody see that okay? Okay, so up on the top. Is the ARPA funding. And these are the SLFRF, state and local fiscal recovery funds. The original amount of the award was the 2.253 million, and in the left-hand column. That is the amount of funding by program. That was committed. In the middle column. Is the amount of funding to date that has been expended. The reason I presented it like that was because there was like the money for the food pantries. Those are monthly or quarterly payments and hadn't been all expended yet. And as well as what I prepared, this the second payment for South Morrow County Seniors Matter hadn't been expended. But then we also have the grant for the Hetner daycare expansion and the commitment for the ambulance to use the $600,000 for ambulance services for interim services had not been expended yet. So we have the committed, the expended, and then the balance of what's been committed. So you net all that together, the total balance of the ARPA funds that is not committed is $110,780 or $779. The LATCF funding, none of that had been committed in this budget. I did utilize that, if you recall, as the source of funding to put towards the ERP system project. It's qualified use for it. And there is a time line associated with expending those funds. So that's just a current reconciliation of what was in that fund when I prepared the budget.
And that. So we have to commit it by the end of this calendar year. We have to expend it by the end of 26. So we're on track to do both. Commitment is just a budget commitment. We can stand for that, or a contracted expenditure.
Yeah.
Is that the ARPA or both of these?
Well, so for the LATCF, if the budget's approved and adopted as presented, then that would serve as a commitment of all of those funds to that project. And then there's still $110,779 of the ARPA funds that the board gets to decide what to do with.
And that's committed 25, expended 26
yeah.
also?
Yes, and we just have to do that before December.
Yeah. Could even go into fiscal year 27, but we're not gonna wait every now.
We don't.
I know, like I said.
There's been some provisions made to extend those deadlines. It's just reporting and accounting that has to happen around these, and so if we can prioritize the expenditure of them for the appropriate uses, that would be best.
The ARPA funds are restricted to COVID impacted or nothing?
So what we've done. And this was before I started, they elected to receive the ARPA funding under the revenue replacement category.
Oh.
And one of the subsequent treasury rules provided an exemption from reporting all the detailed usages and the compliance with all the specific programs that were outlined of up to $10 million of revenue replacement. Well, the county's was $2 million, so that meant 100% of it was exempted from the detailed reporting. And it technically can be used for any governmental service except for lobbying or politically related expenditures. What we've done though is try to keep consistent with the use of those funds, and I would say that it's been very successful in putting it towards programs that were related to or had impacts from the COVID-19 epidemic. That's my opinion.
Right.
And even though those that requirement didn't necessarily exist, that was still kind of how they were utilized as they went for funding to the food pantries and for childcare and broadband and water issues were actually one of the originally specified and allowed uses for programs for ARPA funding. So it's very, very consistent how it was intended. So sometime before December, we'll chat about how to spend $110,000. But
when you say that 110 have to be committed to.
they're committed, yeah.
Okay. So if you were to say the programs that have already been committed, extend the years of that you would commit to them, or that work? A multi-year commitment.
Well, there's a requirement for being expended the following year.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, more. Okay, it has to be spent, but it has to go out of the county's revenue. Yeah.
I'm waiting for a response from our auditors. That actually is a really good point. On the Hebner daycare, if that's a construction project, that obviously runs the risk of being delayed or strung out over time. I believe though that the grant award having been awarded and committed to by the board, and once we get a contract in place, I've been talking with Lindsay, who's on the board of the daycare. We don't have a contract yet. I just haven't had time to spend on that, but I will have before the end of the year. Once we have a contract in place that outlines the disbursement schedule related with that, I need to find out if that qualifies as having been committed and expended, because then at that point it's just all liability on the books. So, okay, but I'll keep tabs on that and make sure that we're not in jeopardy.
For instance, an example of that program you just said, we're not granting the money to the nonprofit daycare. We're paying the contractors to build the thing.
So it's a grant to the daycare. The daycare is the recipient, but I didn't want to do it under the normal beneficiary agreement that I've developed, where we just grant the funds because of the amount, and we wanted to do more of a reimbursement. The daycare doesn't have enough, they're not having enough cash flow, so it can't be probably a reimbursement. And so I need to sit down and get creative to find something that protects the funds and
you could do it like a construction loan does, based on the percentage of completion.
Take a draw.
Yeah, but they're having trouble finding a site, or else they'd be moving on it.
Yeah, I know. I'm not
made that very clear when they that was a big.
Yeah, not faulting them a bit.
No, you're not. I'm just saying that they're very anxious to get going on this.
Yeah, but Well, I'll actively monitor and manage that so that, you know, there's no. So that we're not in jeopardy of ever losing any of that
Right.
funding and they get the full benefit of it, but yeah, we're not gonna give them. You know, we're not just writing a check for $800,000. And
Stick it in the bank.
And then everybody goes to TV. There might be, there might be,
it sounds great right now, actually.
if you have time and we get to the point where it's a liability and a risk of the ARPA funding, then I might be, we should talk about that. Cause I could probably guarantee that.
There are creative solutions.
Mhm. That you would not be a risk for not having that go where it needs to go.
Right. Which is.
But I'm
A
saying,
shell game, but it is what it is.
right, but I'd say that there's ways you could get guaranteed, so.
Yeah. Any questions on it? All right. I wanted to go back and my screen sharing is paused. How do I unpause my screen share? Oh, resume. Right there. Oh. What? Oh, maybe should I have to share it?
I was thinking of 60.
Wanted to revisit, so yesterday we had there was one other outstanding item that was requested by the committee, and that was the amount of the funding that was in the prior year budget for the soil and water conservation district, and that was $60,000. So the request for this year was $5,000 over last year. So that was just in my notes to follow up on. If there are, that is all that I have to present. And
Well, we can talk about the health, the public health.
oh, yes, thank you. Let's see, I'm trying to get out of here now. So Sabrina and Robin went and took a look at that, and this was about the reduction when the fee revenue went down. And it looks like that some of the revenue that had historically been accounted for as fee revenue or charges was actually grant revenue, and so it was reclassified into the appropriate.
Oh, okay.
So as just a result of the accounting for that. Not an actual reduction.
No, and that's part of the reason that the other one went up as much as it did.
So that was the last thing I think that I had to follow up on. And the only other action that is required, or I guess not required, but it's kind of the point of why we're here, is if there's any amongst the committee, discuss and deliberate, and if there's no other budget changes, there's two motions that would need to occur. And one would be to approve the budget and the amount, and I obviously that's not the real amount. I just like writing $1 billion.
That's a number.
And then the second motion would be to approve the permanent rate tax levy in the amount of the $4.1347 per $1,000 in assessed value. And I've drafted those motions there. If there's not any So whenever the committee is comfortable, if there's no changes, then I can populate that number with the total, final, budget amount. But, you know, whatever time is needed to discuss, deliberate, ask any additional questions.
You didn't have very many changes.
No, and we had a big clarification this morning for the ODF building.
So actually, I don't believe that there were any, there were no changes.
No.
Yeah, just
Just clarification.
If anyone have,
I don't, it looks, I think we're ready to
I can't
go.
believe
South for Mark.
lightning speed.
yeah. As much as we like to have people come and think about it, that makes a difference. And it also makes a difference. I mean, it's not the same thing. That's not a word.
Yeah. That's can answer the question.
Yeah,
That's a real.
and ask them and get answers.
That's not great. Yes, a permanent rate, doesn't change.
So that, is that to like measure 50 or something? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
You can let it be less, you just can't let it be more.
Right, so that's,
I guess, yeah, you could.
you can
lower
go less, if not. That's the maximum for, because of major 50. Yeah, that's.
Prior to Measure 50, we were a levy-based system. And Measure 50 made us a rate-based property tax system. You probably remember voting on school levy, the county levy, the county levy included roads at the time.
Is there any questions, comments? Is there a motion?
They're waiting for them to get the number.
I move the budget committee in Warren County approve the budget for the 2024-25 fiscal year in the amount of, what happened to the other figure?
Yeah.
$116,874,966.
Is there a second? There's a second here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Motion, the second
I'll
motion.
make a motion that we move that that the budget committee in Morrow County approve the property taxes for 24-25 fiscal year at the rate of 4.1347 per $1,000 of assessed value for the permanent rate tax levy.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Wonderful, thank you.
Can we give a shout out to
Yeah,
Kevin?
standing ovation.
I have just one item I want to run by the full committee. We were talking about it a little bit on our break. On the request for funding in the grants, so the food pantries and the Chamber of Commerce and whatnot. What if next year we solicit those requests? Maybe in like the January timeframe, and then just do a special 2-hour meeting of the budget committee and the public, anybody else who's interested, to have people, have those entities and groups come and present and discuss. The only caveat is there couldn't be any decision on whether or not some things is included in the budget, because without making it. If we did that, yeah, it's like we're informational, educational. If we deliberated on a budget, then we would be violating the budget law.
Yeah.
But from that discussion, we could get a pretty good idea of the comfort level and if there's any concerns or anything from the budget committee about inclusion of requests in the proposed budget.
I guess my budget January is gonna be a little early.
Well, it could be a weather issue too for some people.
And I was just kind of pulling that out.
Yeah, I mean, how much time do we really need to personally vet what comes forward? And not have so much time to get complacent and forget about it.
Or that you don't have time to get it worked in.
Right. So working backwards, ideally, I think it'd be better if we were having this meeting in April. Which means that I would probably need to have those requests, and I hate saying it depends, But, you know, if there's no significant change, you know, I can just leave an earmark in there. And carry on with the budget, and then that's just a last minute change. If there was a big dollar change or something in a request or a new request, that could change that around a little bit. So I would think that we would wanna be able to have that meeting by March, at the beginning of March, end of February. Would be ideal.
February, that way if it was cheap for the end of February, now maybe it was the weather or something.
Yeah, no, we have some rooms in the, that, I'm just looking January to, you know, late April, May, it's for me, it's like, that's enough time for me to just get in place and forget about it.
Are we going to just go with the current ones that are funded and tell them, or are we going to outreach and say, is there others that might want to present? And then give the guidelines to, does it have to be a nonprofit, all this stuff?
So my thought should be, it should be opened up a little bit, because I think that we run a risk of just doing the good old boy deal there. These are the ones that's always done it. Yeah.
So then we just
But I
have
think we need some rules. I like your idea of having some.
Yeah,
guidelines. on it.
So in my notes, what I had written down, was if we did like a public posting, and again, you know, timing, I was just getting it on paper as I was thinking about it. In January, parameters would be for nonprofits, local governments, or special districts. I would assume we're not interested in granting money to for-profit entities. And then, I haven't gotten this far yet, but you know, some language about, you know, tied to economic development or serving an underserved, you know, group of members of the community, something like that. And then
County assessors and tax collectors.
Understood, yeah.
underserved, overfed.
and then it'll say except Mike Gorman. And so if the committee is comfortable with that and be willing to, it would be, I'm thinking like a 2 or 3 hour, depending on the response, session. And then everybody gets, then it's time that's committed, to let people come in, talk about what they've done with the funding and what they would like to do with the funding.
Yeah.
And then it's not part of.
And I'd like to see that in the guidelines, right? What, if you've received money before, give us some examples of what you've done with that money. And if you're a new person, then you know what your plans are, and then you would have to come back next year and explain what you did with it if you want to. So
I think probably
on time. You know, you get 5 minutes to present, and we'd like a report before you're headed with it or something like that, so that it doesn't.
kind of like that, they can write up this whole thing, but you know, you got 5 minutes to kind of cover over and give us the basics of it.
I think prior to doing that, we probably draft what that looks like and then take it to the board of commissioners and I solicit, I guess, input from the rest of the budget committee members too on that prior to, so. Make sure they're all aligned. Okay. That's all I have. I've been talking a lot.
Do we have to make any kind of a motion on that or just a consensus?
I think just a consensus.
I'd be happy to come back to do that.
Yeah. I think it would.
I do, I think the outreach to people is important. Yeah, I think that.
It feels like to me that that's the only part that's not really been vetted in here. I mean, you've spent a lot of time with all the different heads of the departments all the way through, and then we kind of get to that part that's, well, this is what we've always done.
Well,
not really a good, criticism of yours, but there's no real process for why we're doing
But
that.
it seems to be growing.
Way better.
so we talked about this last.
Yeah.
And, you know, they used to come during the budget committee meetings and present then. That there's some unique challenges. I mean, not just with the expansion of the amount of time of the committee meetings to review the proposed budget, but also is equal access. And there's you gotta show up and bring it and,
Well, plus
my opinion is it should be a little bit more.
I think it should be a bit of it, like
Yeah.
everything else, so that there's.
And I thought to bring a balanced budget to the committee, and if there's decisions that have yet to be made on what's included in the budget,
Extra work for you.
then like, if you can't bring a balanced budget to the committee, and that's, you know, probably, we really need to have a good, strong, solid recommended budget when we bring a proposed budget to the committee. So as much advanced work that we can do to make this process as expeditious and because you guys are volunteers and you guys are busy and we want to make the best use of your own.
And I think that 2-hour meeting earlier in the year is just gonna save us time.
Yeah.
When we get to this process. We might be able to
Do it in a day?
do a little longer of a day and get it done in a day.
I'm gonna be honest with you, we could have, we published an agenda with items today, so we couldn't have done it last night, but we could have easily probably put this into a day.
That's insane. But it would make everybody's life easier.
Certainly scheduling, you know how hard it is to find 3 days in a row. for
I do.
this group.
And I do appreciate you working around so that I can be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I can mark one off, now I have another budget meeting to go to, not right away, well, the school budget, but and the city, and
I'm just on the part.
So,
oh,
is there we'll have a vacancy in a position.
well, I don't know, you're pretty tough, or it's really tough this time, so I don't know that I could do it.
So,
Oh, I
I would-
would like to do that again, but it's, I leave that up to you. I won't be offended if you get elsewhere, but I will be.
So the question is, really, are you going to apply?
It's on board and there'll be a notification and we'll solicit applicants and I guess I just wanted to say, that Linda's term expires this year, and how many years have you been on the budget committee?
A lot.
100.
Is that a great grandfather clause?
So it needs to be a lot more.
I think. And
I think you've been longer than that.
think that longer than that.
I mean, didn't you take place of Vern Redmond's son when he moved out of county?
oh, I think I did. I just did what Larry told me to, I came. Yeah, I've been on this one, might be 12 years.
Yeah, that's a long time and I wasn't here for most of those, but thank you, because involvement is the whole point.
Well, it is, and then we as the committee are really kind of here to support and to explore and
You run a good meeting, Linda.
yeah, I really did this one.
Yeah, you have done.
And you're good with the gavel.
I learned before this is what I did like to get it. It sounds so loud. And I guess we're done.
Yep.
So, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.